First of all, wish you a very good evening because I deserve your patience. Our most respected Professor Nagaraju Saab, not only a very, very serious and senior historian in India and abroad, but one of the best colleagues I have ever met in my more than 40 years career in academic life. As a scholar, as an administrator, as a good human being. My colleagues should always know that if you get a good colleague, you really prosper in life. And I really bow my head before my senior colleague, esteemed Professor Nagaraju sir. Thank you. In fact, at the outset, I would also like to mention that my temptation for this seminar, which I would reveal, was because I'll be able to see him here. I really was starving for the opportunity. Thank you. Our most honored chief guest, Dr. Nallam, who has given you a sample of his history writing. I think he is more of a historian. Doctor, thank you for your presence here. My colleague from Pondicherry University and a great friend, Professor Raghutamji, who is also a very great historian and a good human being. My all colleagues from Pondicherry University, Professor Chandramouli ji, Professor Rajan, my colleague from Hyderabad University, equally good friend, Professor K.P. Rao, Professor Kulkarni Sahab, Professor Swami ji, Professor Swaminathan, Professor Mohanty, invited guests, invited professors. I also acknowledge the presence of Dr. Gopal ji from Indira Gandhi Center for National Arts here. Friends, before I start boring you with the details of the idea of trade that you have been listening for last 2 days very patiently, let me tell you there is something regarding this seminar and University of Pondicherry and Hanglu. I think the two people last time when Frankopan released his book on Silk Roads, the first two people read that book was Professor Venkatragautam was the first person in India, I was the second. When I finished his first volume, Silk Roads, everybody should read it. In fact, I would say Dr. should also read it, everybody. It's a great book, I tell you. When I finished reading that book last time, a few years before, I got a phone call. I'm forgetting, in fact, you see, Professor Reddy has put a great friend and colleague here. He has put a cap, so I could not notice you near the camera. He's also an old friend and colleague, in fact. So last time I finished reading that book, I just left the book on the table. I got a phone call from this department, I think Professor Chandramouli only, that we are conducting a seminar. Why don't you give a keynote address for this? The memories were very fresh when I came here and saw the book was also read by Professor Raghutamji. And I gave that keynote address for the seminar on trade and commerce. It is something very natural and interesting. You know, this time, maybe Professor Venkatragautamji does not know that second volume of the book has come. Yes. See, again the first in India, I would say. Not many people know. When this New Silk Route came, I read the book. I'll give you some interesting details from that also. And again, I finished reading the book. Immediately I found there was a phone call from Professor Chandramouli ji that we are conducting a seminar, why not you come for this? And along with that, when he mentioned Professor Nagaraju, I said, I'll certainly come. Whether I am academically prepared or not, because my senior colleague is here, he'll always protect me even in this old age also. Friends, there are very, you see, we have been discussing, when I stepped into this room, yesterday in fact, Professor K.P. Rao ji was illustrating very wonderful details, you know. I have earlier also read some of his work, in fact, on megaliths, and in department we worked almost, I was there for 31 years, so many times we crisscrossed each other and discussed these things. Likewise, we found Professor Kulkarni ji, Professor Swami ji, Professor Swaminathan, Professor Mohanty, everybody in the series and all those young enthusiasts, in fact, who have been reading papers from yesterday, in fact. Wonderful contributions on trade and commerce, maritime trade, different trade routes, Vijay Lakshmi talking about iron and copper details and so on. Very good, it's a wonderful mine of information that's available to all of us. But what comes to my mind is, everything is okay. We have done lot of work by our senior archaeologist, Professor Rajan is here. Two of the eminent archaeologists are here. We have lots of people, Professor K.S. Matthew, Neil Steengart, Ruth Hermund, Rila Mukherjee, Ashindas Gupta, Holden Ferber. There are lots of scores of them, in fact, right from ancient times, latest book being by Benudar Mahapatra, in fact, one of the best book presently, written by a very young scholar on Orissa. And of course, maritime trade. But something interesting is that we all lack now method. I was very carefully listening to when Selvaraj was reading paper this morning, in fact. And the question that Professor Venugopal Reddy ji had yesterday raised, because some of us now feel that this exercise was must, because we had no data earlier. But now there is so much of data on these issues of maritime trade. What next? I, for one, who is illiterate about maritime trade, I would say there is plenty of maritime trade. I would also read my story of this, joining you in illustrating that story of relationship of different countries, because I have done some work on, if not on maritime trade, on the Silk Route and so on. But what then? We had trading relationship, there is no doubt about it. We had plentiful of archaeological evidence with most of these countries. If we go back to Warmington, which I will be quoting, in fact, it goes back to 2nd century BC. Illustrated plentiful of trade from Andhra Pradesh into Roman Empire and so on. The book has been reprinted after, I think, a century now. Earlier it was published in 1928. Now it has been again reprinted recently by Cambridge University Press. But what then, in fact, what is next? The next, I feel personally, that we are not raising certain questions to make this, to consolidate this wonderful work that our scholars have done. The question is, what is the next that's going to happen into this? Are we relating this work to various other aspects of social formation in this country? You see, if you look at interesting dimension of this, the interesting dimension is, we have an impression that Europe is doing wonderful and a superior complex Europe has in terms of economy, technology. But Europe is gone today. Because if you look at wine industry, I am quoting the New Silk Route. If you look at wine industry, perfume industry, topmost industries of France, they are all taken over by Chinese and Arabs. And a couple of them taken over by even Central Asians from Kazakhstan and other places. There is nothing in the hands of French people now. If you look at Spain, for example, similarly their industries have been taken by Arabs now. If you look at, except Germany, all other European, look at London, for example, your cricket league, your football team, Manchester, it's taken by Arabs, it's taken by Kazakhs, it's taken by Central Asian people. There's nothing in their hands in terms of, growing their economy and dictating things. That's why we say the Asian century has come. Because the decisions about economy and polity would be taken in Asia. Why? Because now they have nothing in their hands to take decisions about. Our tiff with, Pakistanis recently was not settled as much by Americans, it was settled more by the Arabs. Because they are our trading partners. They are dictating more than Europe to the world now in terms of trade and in terms of economy. That's why we say it's an Asian century. It's Asian century because China, a great giant, is a dictator in the world now in terms of, determining the economy of different countries. China holds today control over most of the assets in Africa now. Many assets in Europe. It's equally and predominantly